Mr. V. Shankar, an IIT-M IIMC graduate, founder CAMS Computer Age Management Services Private Limited in 1988 to provide a platform and services to the Indian mutual fund industry. He is involved with several organizations that promote entrepreneurship as well as with both his alma mater. Mr. Shankaran Narain, Executive Director and Investment Officer, ICICI Prudential AMC Limited. Mr. Narain, an IIT Madras and IIMC alumni. Mr. Narain joined the AMC in 2004 as fund manager and has worked in various capacities in the investment function, culminating in his taking over as the Chief Investment Officer. He currently manages some of flagship schemes of the ICICI Prudential Mutual Fund. Mr. Narain was also a member of the esteemed panel of invitees for the Honorable Prime Minister's pre-budget consultation meet for 2020. In recognition of his work, various leading investment authors have featured him through dedicated chapters in their investment books. He is widely recognized as India's leading mutual fund and capital market investment guru. Mr. Shankaran Narain is also a member of the Committee on Equity Matters at AMFI.
We are going to speak today on financial preparedness for tough times. And maybe it's a little bit of, closing the door after the stable, closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. But still, there will be more tough times in times to come. And it is important for our audience, which is mainly students and some of our members, to understand how they should prepare themselves for tough times that may come in future. So I want to start this off, Narain, by basically handing over to you for an opening address, and then I'll come back to you with some questions that our members have raised for you. Over to you.
Number one lesson that actually one of my gurus called Howard Marks taught me is that there is something called a cycle. And this cycle actually keeps happening, and it goes from one end to another end. And it's like a clock. So the pendulum swings. There is a pendulum which becomes very, very optimistic, and there is a pendulum which becomes very, very pessimistic. So, for example, I've been in equity markets for long. So there have been periods like 2008 and 2002 when the pendulum was exceptionally pessimistic. There have been periods like 1999, 2007, and now where the pendulum has been very, very optimistic. And if I look at this topic, what is important is that individuals who are part of financial markets have to recognize that you have to be careful when the pendulum is extremely optimistic, like today. And what does it mean? It means that you have to be careful in taking position in derivative markets. You should not be leveraged in equities. You have to be exceptionally careful when you are investing in equities today. On the other hand, when the pendulum is extremely pessimistic, like 2008 or 2002, you have to be extremely aggressive and you should take extremely positive views towards equity markets in 2002 and 2008. The irony is, at that point of time, the people will tell you just the reverse. So if you looked at the markets, the best two times to invest in the markets was after the Lehman failure and after the World Trade Center bombing. But if you had bought on the day after World Trade Center bombing or after the Lehman failure, it was astonishingly difficult to buy equities. But those are the two best days to buy equities anywhere in the world. So when you talk about financial preparedness for tough times, I would say we are opposite times. We are actually in the best times at this point of time. And you have to be exceptionally careful at this point of time. In fact, I have a theory that if something comes into first page of newspapers, you have to be very careful. So today, for example, cryptocurrencies have started to come in the first page of newspapers. And if everything starts getting, comes in first page of newspaper and starts becoming the thing which sponsors everything, you have to be very, very careful. So I would say that, I always tell people that if something is getting sponsored by a particular set of companies, you have to be very careful, unless it is by an established company which always does it all the time. And today, if suddenly today cryptocurrency companies are today the ones which are sponsoring everything, you have to be very careful. And that again is actually, financial preparedness for difficult times actually works opposite. So if everything is sponsored by a set of companies suddenly, that actually is a more dangerous area. So I would say that cryptocurrency trading is possibly one of the most dangerous things to do at this point of time. Not that I'm an expert in cryptocurrency, not that anyone can be an expert in cryptocurrency, but the reality which everyone knows, that is, by investing in cryptocurrency, do you get interest? Answer is no. Do you get dividend? The answer is no. And it reminds me to my days in Chennai, where I don't know whether you remember, there was something called as a teak tree. And a lot of people invested in teak trees, thinking you will make money out of teak trees. And those teak trees never came up. And those companies actually went bankrupt. And it was very, people did all kinds of multiplication and said, if you invested in teak trees, you will actually make huge sum of money. But those teak trees never came up. So I would say that that's a very interesting aspect that I learned from my experiences, that there is nothing called money hanging in the air which can be made too easily. And this is the second lesson that we have all learned from our experience. The third lesson I would say, which something, which I have learned by watching Shankar and my own experiences, is that everyone thinks that education ends on the day we finish education. Actually, education never should end. And if you think education ends on the day you finish education, then you will go obsolete in no time. For example, when I started my career, I was involved with Chennai Stock Exchange membership. But it's very interesting to note that Madras Stock Exchange did not last. And slowly over a period of time, I became a fund manager. And it is because that I became a fund manager of an equity mutual fund that I have a career at the age of 55. Mr. Shankar started by doing registrar work. And before that, he did a lot of work for us in Hong Kong Bank. And from there, he moved to becoming a mutual fund registrar. So the kind of changes that all of us did over our entire investing career, over our career by learning continuously, is just unbelievable. And if we all thought that after an IIT IIM, we have finished learning, we would have all become obsolete in 10 to 15 years. So just like, there are troubled times, on a continuing basis, you have to keep learning. In fact, I met one of my IIT Madras classmates about 4 years back. He told me that when I was studying in IIT, we learned something called Fortran. Then we learned something called Pascal. Then we learned something called C++. Then I learned something else. Then I learned Python. So he said learning never ended in software. And if he had stopped learning, he said that he would have got obsolete in 5 years' time. So the reality is that, continuous learning is part of how you manage the world over a period of time. And this is the biggest learning that I had, that if I decided that I will be only involved in Madras Stock Exchange and not anything else, I would have actually not managed to have a career at the age of 55. Because the reality is that, there were so many people who are involved in trading in a floor, then subsequently involved in handling transfer deeds, who used to actually handle something called as a clearinghouse. All those professions actually changed. There used to be a situation where all the brokers used to deal for all the customers. Today, all the customers do directly through internet, and internet changed everything. So if we had decided that in 89, when I passed out of MBA, I stopped learning, in 2021, the learning I would have become obsolete. So when you say financial preparedness, I would say that you have to actually continuously keeping learning is part of financial preparedness. Like, for example, in 2000 till 2007, I used to think that if I had learnt an annual report, if I had read an annual report, I could make money in stocks. In 2008, when the financial crisis hit and we lost 50% for all our investors, I went back and realized that it is not enough to read annual reports. You have to understand what is happening in macroeconomics. And therefore, I had to learn macroeconomics in the year 2008. And after that, it helped me to launch a US blue chip equity fund in 2012, which turned out to be extraordinarily successful because a dollar rupee changed substantially from 2011 to 2013. What was dollar rupee in 45 became 68 in 2013. And that was because of the learnings that we had in macroeconomics, which we learned after 2008, after the global financial crisis. So financial preparedness also involves being completely learning newer and newer things. And particularly if you are in IT related areas, if you're not going to learn on a continuing basis, you will soon become obsolete. So what are my learnings growing up in Chennai? We are all taught to study. We are all taught to study to do very well in academics, but we are not taught how to make money. And to make money is an art. And to learn that art, you have to learn how to become an investor. And what is needed to become an investor? What is needed to become an investor is actually very good temperament. And how do you build temperament? You build temperament by knowing how to manage your emotions. So what happens is that there are times when the market does very, very well. When the market does very, very well, you have to know how to say that you will actually come out of an asset class. So for example, in 2012-13, for about 11-12 years, real estate had done very well across the country. So I used to tell people in 2012-13, sell your real estate. So I had a flat in Chennai, which I sold because I felt that the flat in Chennai had appreciated too much from 2004 to 2012-13. Because one of my biggest learnings from the learning of cycle was that if you had a situation where an asset class did very, very well, you have to book profit in that asset class. But it was so difficult in 2012-13 for people to sell real estate. Most people bought real estate. In 2012-13, I got a chance to meet builders all over India. And I met builders in Delhi, I met builders in Bombay, I met builders in Pune, I met builders in Calcutta. I told all of them, please deleverage, do not build debt in real estate. No one was willing to listen to me because after 10 years of real estate going up, they could not see that real estate cannot continuously go up. But the most important thing is cycle. So if you have 10 years of market going up, it is very difficult for them to visualize that markets can also go down. So most of the builders across India took debt and leveraged themselves that from 2013 to 2020, almost everywhere, with the exception of Hyderabad, real estate prices fell. And Hyderabad had not gone up because of a Telangana split. Otherwise, in all other places, real estate prices did not move up from 2013 to 20. So if you are able to recognize a cycle and stay with a good temperament at the top of the cycle, you will make huge money. Take today US, for example. The US stock market has been continuously going up from 2012 to 2021. And now you have 9 years of market going up. People find it so difficult to be cautious at this point of time. And they're so happy paying record high valuations for companies which don't make earnings in US. So people ask me, is it easy? I think it is easy, but you need a good temperament. People think making money requires knowledge. It is not knowledge which decides how to make money. It is temperament which decides how to make money. Everyone in India knew that for 11 years, real estate prices had gone up everywhere in India. But in 2012-13, for people to take a call that real estate was overvalued is very difficult. Today, for people to take a call that many of the new age companies in America and other places is overvalued, people find it very difficult because for the last 9 years, all the stocks have gone up. Similarly, if you take the cryptocurrency boom at this point of time, people find it pretty difficult. So what else should you do in financial preparedness? It's very simple. When times are good, save. When times are very bad, use the saving to reduce your use the savings and spend the money at that point of time. So when times are very good, if you know how to save, it is very, very important. And if you don't save when things are good, it is a problem. Everything is a cycle. If you're a small and medium enterprise and you have actually done very well for the last 3 years, do not splurge, save. On the other hand, if you've gone through a period where it's very, very tough, that's the time to utilize your savings. So if you borrow at the top of the market, you have a problem. Borrowing at the bottom of the market is never a problem. And this is the learnings that we have from my 32 years of working. So many of what I believe is financial preparedness is pretty easy for people to do. And all that is required is a good temperament. And if you can actually create a good temperament, it would help a lot. And in our reading, to create a good temperament, it is useful to create a group of people. Actually, I grew up in Chennai. I made a lot of financial mistakes in 94, 95. And after making a lot of financial mistakes in 94, 95, 96, we created a group of friends. Many of those friends are sitting in Chennai. That group of friends became some kind of a support system. And all of us together created a support system which helped us to actually improve our temperament. If that group had not been created, I believe that we could not have improved our temperament. And the moment our temperament improved, we started to make very good money over the long term. It helped me to become a good fund manager for the last 17 years. It helped us, ICICI Prudential, to become one of the largest equity fund managers in the country and manage other people's money well. You'll be surprised to note, knowledge is not the most important thing to make money in life. It is temperament which is the most important to make money in life. And this is our learning over long periods of time. And that's what I wish to talk to all my fellow citizens from my hometown of Chennai. Thank you all.
I could see that you're speaking from your heart. And as you said, 30 odd years of working in the financial markets, you do learn a number of things. Couple of things I wanted to emphasize that you said, which I think bear emphasis to this audience. First is this question of keeping on learning. Of course, whatever the business you are in, whether you're a business, whether you're a student, whether you're in a profession, learning is the key to ultimate success. And in the same way, if you think that you want to become an investor, earn money beyond what the fixed deposit will give you, then learning about the markets, learning about the cycles is very important so that you don't lose your shirt in the process. You emphasized it a number of times. I think it was fully deserved. All that emphasis is fully deserved. Cycles is another thing which you pointed out. Yes, markets go through cycles. We don't think of real estate as a market. Honestly, I think everybody thinks that real estate is just something that keeps going up and up. But all markets, including real estate, are indeed cycles. And maybe we are at the top of a cycle. Maybe we are nearing the top of a cycle. I don't really know. Maybe it's got some more distance to go. But I can be pretty sure that there will be a down cycle at some point in time. And we should all not lose our heart at that point in time. and we should be prepared for that. Few other points that I will take them up when the question arises, but I want to take you through some of the questions that some of our members and audience has posed to us. The first question, rather obvious question, is this philosophy of saving up for bad times has been around for a long time. Our parents taught it to us, their parents taught it to them, and so on. But when you come across a down cycle which is as intense and as deep as what we've been through in the last couple of years, maybe not from the stock market perspective, but certainly from a personal earnings perspective, a large portion of the population has been severely impacted. How do you actually save for that? How do you actually protect yourself against that? Now, I know that companies cut costs and so on, and to some extent, individuals can also cut costs. Maybe there is a societal framework that supports you. There is a safety net somewhere there. Maybe government steps in a little bit. How do you think we should prepare for deep depressions, deep drops?
Beyond a point, it is tough because at the end of the day, India does not have the social net which is there in some parts of Europe, for example. And the good thing is India has a very good family support system. So the hope is the family support system helps you. But India has a tradition of savings. So if you had income, logically the question is savings. But what worries me is that, in people in my generation in Chennai, people didn't have the guts to borrow. And I would say that in my generation, people didn't have the guts to take any loan from, let's say, a personal loan or a credit card loan or any loan which paid any high interest to anybody, or even a chit fund loan or anything like that. Today, what I find is that a lot of people are happily willing to take loans at very high interest rates, even when times are good. And that is a worry. So I would say that it is very important that at least when times are good, do not borrow that easily. Create a savings pool through systematic investment plan in safe funds and things like that. And use that savings pool in bad times. Of course, if you don't have income and therefore you don't have savings, I don't know how I can help you. But if you had income and therefore a potential to save, I think you should use things like systematic investment plan and create a savings pool. There again, I believe that you cannot say I will only invest in equity. You have to invest in both equity and debt and gold, so that you are actually invested in all the asset classes. This is what I can say. So finally, at the end of the day, savings is the only thing which can help you in bad times. But if you never had income to save, that's a tough thing. But at least during what you think are decent times, do not borrow indiscriminately. That is another important thing, which I believe in the times that I grew up in 80s in Chennai, it was almost not the done thing to borrow. Whereas now I find that when I talk to people, I believe that people are much more comfortable borrowing, whether it is in Bangalore or Chennai or Hyderabad. I feel the culture of borrowing more easily, not just for houses, but for anything, has increased significantly. And that's a slight worry. If you have income and you save a bit in good times, rather than say, I have income, so I will borrow to my income's capability. That is something that worries me a bit.
Second question, more for the corporates. Now, you talked about as an individual that you keep learning. And one of the aspects of learning is how to manage your personal affairs, including your personal money. What is the equivalent for companies, small companies, large companies, particularly small companies? The owners, the entrepreneurs are not necessarily great investors, not necessarily great financial managers. They may be good engineers, they may be good marketers, they may be good salespeople, but they may not necessarily be great at finance. And I've seen this quite often with smaller companies, that they get into financial trouble even though the business is fundamentally a good business. Where should these small business owners go to absorb some knowledge on better financial management? In that level of company, personal and company sort of merge together. It is almost like one big entity. Where would they go to learn that? What is your advice to them?
I mean, you'll be surprised. My personal view is it's finally only temperament here again. So, having watched bigger companies, finally, at the end of the day, when a big bull market comes, they start doing big capex. When times are bad, they stop doing capex. So somewhere what is required is that you need to, when times are good, you need to be more careful. When times are very bad, you need to be more aggressive. See, everything is a cycle. So let's assume you are, let's say, manufacturing auto ancillary. When auto ancillary industry is doing extremely well, at that point of time, if you do capex, by the time the capex comes, the industry would be in down cycle. On the other hand, if auto ancillary industry is doing extremely badly, if you manage to find the ability to do capex, by the time the capex comes, the cycle would be up in good shape. So I tell people that somewhere, if we have seen that if 90% of the acquisitions that have happened in 2007 have been failures. Because in 2007, most of the acquisitions have happened at high price. Whereas if you had done acquisition post-Lehman, in 2008, after the financial crisis, your acquisition would have been good quality because you would have bought it at a bottom price. So I believe that, if you are able to take decisions at bottom of cycle, you normally take the right decisions, even if you're a small company. On the other hand, if you take decisions when things are doing very well, you normally take a wrong decision. And so my perception is that end of the day, my belief is that it is very critical that you have to look at the cycle and you have to look at the temperament. And in a way, my family was involved in a smaller business in 90s. And we have seen that as long as people are able to handle the temperament of taking a decision at the bottom, things work well. Because all the decisions taken at the top turn out to be decisions which you have taken somehow at the spur of the moment. Whereas if you're taking decisions at the bottom and you have the ability to take decisions which are against public view, then you somehow take the right decisions. This is my learning over watching people, even bigger companies, forget smaller companies.
I think there is a lot of peer pressure when there is bullishness and excitement all around, and you end up taking a decision which may not be the best in hindsight. I want to come back to this theme of learning or absorbing from the best in the market or from some sort of advisory infrastructure. If I am not well, I know where to go to. And if I have a problem with my heart, I know where to go. If I have a problem with my stomach, I know where to go. With my bones, I know where to go. There are specialist hospitals, there are specialist doctors. With lawyers, you have criminal lawyers, you have civil lawyers, you have just counsel who draft agreements for you. So as human beings, as citizens, we are well aware of where to go to for specialist advice in certain areas. I get the feeling somehow that the average person is not that familiar with the financial advisory infrastructure that is in the country. Can you take us through what the financial advisory infrastructure is in the country? And how does an average person with not too much money, maybe a few lakhs of rupees to invest, how does he access that infrastructure? Who does he reach out to? And how can he be sure that the advice that he's getting is reasonably good?
Actually, you look at it, the kind of SEBI, for example, has made us spend 0.01% of the AUM on investor education, which is a fairly large sum of money, frankly, because of the quantum of assets that the mutual fund industry has. You have a large number of mutual fund distributors all over India who are also engaged in advising investors, or rather they distribute products. You have a number of registered investment advisors. The number of websites that you have in India today, which give you free knowledge on various things, is unbelievable. If I go back to the pre-internet era, the amount of available information on various things, and look at the environment in 2021, you have almost 1,000 times more information today than you have in the pre-internet era. It is just that you have to decide that you have the time to spend on it rather than watch the latest movie. Yeah, frankly. And the amount of information which is available today on the internet today on various matters is just unbelievable, if you ask me. And this is today, so much of this information is available free. And you'll be surprised the amount of information which is available. And as I mentioned, frankly, we've all learned by having a group of 4 or 5 of us together, actually. And, you have industry associations and all these. Yeah. If you had an industry associations and you had a group of 4 or 5 of you together, as I mentioned, if you have 4 or 5 of you, and if 4 or 5 of you, different people decide that this is my strength, I'll focus on this. This is your strength, you focus on this. Mm-hmm. And if 4 or 5 of you together decide that let's jointly pool in knowledge, I think there is a fair amount of learning. For example, even in my team, we have different people looking at different things in my own team, because that is the way, knowledge can be shared. If I'm going to focus on everything, I have only 24 hours and there are only certain things I can do. So a lot of the work in my team is done by my colleagues who do a certain part of the work. I do a certain part of the work. So I believe that kind of sharing can also happen between different friends. And luckily, all people are not competitors of each other. And this is something which I have learned over a period of time, that we're all not competitors. We're all there to share information. In fact, one of the things I learned in financial advice particularly is Warren Buffett shared everything that he knew over decades. But still, it was not possible for others to follow what Warren Buffett said, because at the end of the day, there is a temperament point which ensured that others could not do what Warren Buffett wanted to do. Yeah. So that's why there's not much of a problem. But I would say, finally, it is just like exercise. It is just like healthy habits. You have to finally find time for it and do it. If you don't find the time to do it and you are going to focus on something else, then there's nothing we can do about it.
You're right. As you said, money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard to make money.
Exactly.
It's not a trivial exercise. Can you see, many of the audience here will be looking for careers shortly. And I want you to have a word with them about financial advice as a career, provision of financial advice. So is being a financial advisor a good career path? What actually does it entail? What sort of additional learning is required after a standard management degree? Just throw some light on that, please.
It's a very good career, but you have to remember that today internet is a competitor for every financial advisor. So somewhere we have to remember that, while financial advice is a great career, for everything today, internet is a competitor. And that is the only challenge that you have to keep in mind in a way for financial advice. But my own thesis, which I tell people, is that the Indian education system the 3 most important things for anyone in India or anywhere in the world is 3 things. You should know how to get along well with all the people around you. The second thing is you need to know how to deal with people. You should know how to communicate to people. And third is you should know how to make money in a market through temperament. I feel that these are the 3 skill sets you have to learn. Forget financial advice. You should know how to manage your money. And knowing how to manage your money is and the interesting thing is the educational system cannot teach you these 3 things. It doesn't teach you how to deal with people around you, whether it's your family, your friends, or bosses, subordinates, anyone. Second, it doesn't teach you well how to talk. So if I have to give a talk for 30 minutes, The system does not learn. There is no easy learning to teach. How do you talk to a public audience? And the third is, how do you learn how to make money in the long run? And all these three skill sets are pretty important for your life.
Yeah.
And I would say, forget financial advice as a career. Financial advice is needed for every human being in advice. Yeah. And I can tell you, every person who is part of today's audience needs financial advice for self. Forget for the career. And that itself is important, because it's like health. I mean, I'm saying, if you have to take care of your health, you have to take care of your wealth. And therefore, you read self-advice for financial. If you correctly in 2007 sold stocks, and in 2008 you bought stocks, you would have made more money than you would have ever made in your lifetime. My opinion, what I've learned. In 2013, if you had bought small cap stocks, and in 2017 you had small cap stocks, you would have made more money than you would have made in your job. So I would say financial advice for self is as important as financial advice as a career.
I agree with you. I think just as physical health is important, financial health is also important. And maybe what we all need to do is to rebrand financial advice as financial health, which maybe make people look at it a lot more seriously. Yeah. You spoke about our shared educational backgrounds, right? IIT Madras and IIM Calcutta. And I do go back there from time to time. I know a number of professors there. And I'm amazed to find that such educated, such knowledgeable, such experienced people in their respective domains actually know very little about the world of finance. They're extremely conservative. They put all their money in fixed deposits because that's the only thing they know, or they take advice from uncles and brothers, and therefore they end up making mistakes. The amount of energy they spend in their own domain, they don't spend even 10% of that in their financial health. And as you said, we all sort of overlook this thing. We all sort of overlook the fact that financial health is very important. And the first step to being prepared for tough times is to look after your financial health, just as you have to look after your own physical health to be prepared for even in COVID, for example. People who are otherwise in good health are the guys who came through the infection easily. The people who had difficulty were all people who had comorbidities. They had diabetes, they were obese, something or the other. So, as side effects play a role in physical health, similarly, your good financial health will see you through tough times. I think that is the message that you try to convey to everybody. And with that, Naren, I want to thank you. It was a very interesting session. Thank you so much.